Okay, gentlemen, welcome to today's LinkedIn Live, which is simultaneously broadcasted on YouTube as well as X. We have our two veteran panelists here, Arnold and Dieter Matzion. Dieter is a very well-known figure in FinOps space. He's a FinOps ambassador. He currently works for Roku, handling their, FinOps. He's the FinOps lead at Roku, but he is previously has worked for Intuit, Google, very stellar resume. I don't have to tell more, but he will be sharing his point of view about how do we kind of optimize your savings using savings instruments available on AWS. And the goal here is like, how do we, most companies, they only get to like 60 to 80%. Using their savings instruments. The goal here is how do you go like best in class, 99% commitment coverage, because that's the easiest way to save money for a company, right? And along with Dieter, we have Arnold, who's subject matter experts at FinOps, architect of our AWS commitment management product. And Arnold also comes with a lot of experience in the field. He previously worked at 23andMe. And his engineer is the background. So he has dealt with this both from a practitioner side as well as now creating a product that has impressed the likes of Dieter and more, right? So let's get into, so let's get into this. So like I said, we will be talking about how do you get the best coverage and what are the strategies for doing so and why do it and what are the risks involved. We looked at the panels today. Just a little bit about FinOps. We do provide a complete cloud cost management platform, which includes our visibility platform, cost allocation, and then finally optimization platform, which has you optimize both rate and usage using our commitment management and our EKS optimization, which the whole thing product is structured around FinOps life cycle, inform, operate, and optimize. FinOps is a premier AWS partner with multiple competencies. We process more than $2 billion in annual AWS spend for 1,000 or more customers on our platform. And we transact solely to AWS Marketplace. And our solution is deployed on AWS. We have, like I said, some really good customers who have saved, 47% or more on their cloud cost and monthly estimate of about 40 hours that team has saved using our solution. And we have customers like Sonos, Roku, iSpot TV, and more. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Arnold.
Yeah, so I'm not going to read the slide. This is just just a reminder of the different commitment instruments that you would have for compute in AWS. I think everyone who's probably listening to it is familiar with this, and it just highlights the diversity and complexity in there. And let's just get right into the questions. First question. I think we lost Jintu. Hang on.
Why don't you go ahead and read it, Arnold?
Yeah. Oh, here we go. All right. Yeah. So the obvious question is, AWS already gives us discounts, savings plans, and RIs. If we already have 60, 80% coverage, what's automation? Why is it worth to talk to someone like FinOps? Dieter.
Yeah, so around this question, it's a very good question, and thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. When it comes to savings plans, please do understand that on AWS, savings plans apply to the highest percentage savings first. So be aware that, let's say, if you have a Windows workload that has generally lower savings, and a Linux workload scales out during the day. So in the previous hour, your Windows workload may have had savings plan coverage, and now the savings plan applies to the higher savings workload, leaving your Windows workload uncovered, right? Let's just be aware that this savings plan product works like that, right? Not everyone is aware of that. So the sort of like at the lower end, at the lower percentage of savings, right, where the savings plan applies changes from hour to hour, making that product less predictable, right? That's one thing. Now, when it comes to convertible RIs, you can use the AWS API to make exchanges of convertible RIs. So, for example, if you have a $1 RI for 3 years, you can exchange it into a $3 RI over 1 year, just high level, right? So this will allow you to get additional coverage when your workloads change over the 24 hours of the day, right? So maybe you have during peak, you have 40, 50,000 virtual machines, and then off peak, you have 30,000 virtual machines or EC2 instances, right? That you need something to cover these peaks, right? While not over covering the valleys. So the convertible RIs allow an automation product like this one here to cover the peaks while freeing up coverage for the valleys. When we look at a savings plan, let's say you have a $10 per hour commitment, right, over 3 years. This is $260,000. The $10 an hour is a low watermark, right? You cannot, for the most part, you cannot push underneath it. Now, while savings plans do apply to Fargate workloads and Lambda workloads, these have the lowest savings percentage, and it is not ideal if your savings plan apply to these workloads. It's better than not applying to anything, but it is important to understand that the having 60, 80%, 90% coverage with savings plans does not give you the additional 10% coverage, right? And that is what this product really can achieve.
Yeah, the thing I would add, there's a lot of complexity that I think Dieter just talked about and alluded to. The main point, if you take away nothing at all from here today, is that if you're not at 100%, well, you're never going to be at 100%. But if you're whatever level you are at, I think it is probable that there's an opportunity that can be had there, and with different tools, we may be able to help you achieve more savings. And specifically, Dieter alluded to CRI automation. We may even be able to do things like automate switching from spot to covered usage, with other tools. But the thing to take away here is that automation can help you achieve higher levels of discount, and it's almost always worth some amount of time to talk to a possible vendor like us to see if that opportunity is there. It may not be there, but if you're not, but if there's still, if you might be leaving money on the table, I guess is the short thing.
Yep.
Chito, let's go to the next slide. Next question. So we've been kind of talking a little bit about this, and Dieter, anything you want to expand on manual versus automated commitment management?
Yeah, and that is a differentiating factor in the industry that a lot of FinOps practitioners are not aware of, right? There's a galaxy of vendors that provide manual RI management, right, or CRI management, versus there's only very few vendors that have fully automated commitment management, right? When we look at manual management, right, people make mistakes. And when it comes to RIs, over provisioning RIs, buying too many, or not buying enough, depending on how much your annual cloud spend is, right? These mistakes can be in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So when we look at a manual process, right? Let's say Bob comes in the morning on Monday, and over the weekend, his wife told him that she's filing for a divorce, right? Bob is probably not going to have his head in the game on Monday, and probably not for the end of the week, right? So you don't want this to affect your business, right? An automated algorithm can have mistakes too. They are called bugs, but these bugs will surface every time that corner case is exercised, and the engineers get the opportunity to fix those bugs, right? Strengthening the algorithm over time, right? And that is preferable when you are in a situation where it's running the business, doing monotone day-to-day operations. You don't want to be in a Bob situation, right? Bob situations, I think interacting with people is desirable when you are already in an exception situation. Let's say you need to go and see a doctor, and you need to figure out what's wrong with you and how to fix that, right? People are good for that. For just running the business and getting things done, automation is preferred.
Yep. I think we have a slide that kind of highlights a little bit of what we've talked about in these first two questions that we kind of planned in advance. And what I want to talk through on this slide is what it shows. What is this is a sort of conceptual example of usage where there's some amount of on-demand usage, some amount of on-demand underused savings plans, as Dieter was talking about. And the main thing that we want to highlight here is that it is possible, not always, but that but it's possible to have nearly a very high 90s% coverage where even with varying usage. I think so that and this is only made possible by automation. You can't do this manually. Trust me, I tried. I was doing some amount of manual work in previous things, and I could get some approximation, but you're basically like a hamster turning that wheel, hour by hour. And so, what I would recommend is that these are things that you can explore with us or even other vendors. But this is just showing what's possible. All right.
Okay, so so automation. So what are like the drawbacks if I'm doing it manually, or if I have to do it manually, what it would take, right? Does it require time, skills? What is, you guys have done it, right? So it would be a good idea to share like your experience and why you recommend automation.
Right. The answer is you need you need domain expertise, right? As Dieter alluded, you don't want to make mistakes. You need time. The workloads are changing. In this kind of, this is a conceptual, you could change the scales here, but if you treated these things as hourly, you need to make hourly decisions, which is possible in with convertible RIs, and then you need data, you need tooling, and you need information that you can trust to make those decisions.
Yeah,
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, humanly, it is really challenging to do that on an hourly basis, right? When I have done this for over 4 years at Intuit, we did weekly adjustments, right? That is the best that we were able to do. So you can push it up a little bit manually, but again, we are looking at an easy 10 to 20 hours a week investment, right? And you don't get that optimal coverage that a fully automated system provides.
Yes, so two things, right? One, just to reiterate the point, you do need skills, and then you also need time, right? And on top of that, you're not getting the optimal solution. So time is money. So whether you have people on your staff, they need to get paid and everything else. So let's talk about like what is kind of so thank you for sharing that. The next question is around, so let's say what is the incremental, we get customers who are like, yeah, I'm already doing some of this, why I should, give us some examples of what can be achieved in terms of potential savings, right? And how companies like Roku are like, why are they best in class? Why are they achieving the high level of savings that most companies in the space, they kind of go like 60%, 70 or 70% or 80% commitment coverage. And that means you're leaving dollars on the table. Dieter, you want to have some thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. At Roku, we spend between 150 and 200 million annually on public cloud. We are 80% on AWS, 18% on Google Cloud, and 2% on Azure. On AWS alone, we had the typical 80-90% savings plan coverage. When we tried a external vendor for the first time, they were able to add 10 to 20 million dollars of annual savings. So it is substantial, right? We definitely saw over 20% in additional savings, even though I was under the impression that I already did a fairly good job, which was surprising to me, right? These fully automated solutions have definitely advantages that are humanly not achievable, right? And we have some other questions around, how much that costs and those kind of things. But here, how do we measure it? One thing that I did is I tracked the compute spend. So on AWS, this is the EC2 product, and how much list pricing would have been, how much was the coverage with the savings plans that I purchased, and what was the additional coverage that the vendor was able to achieve, right? And then I subtracted the cost of the vendor product from that, right? And I tracked net savings month over month. And after like 12 months, I had a really decent spreadsheet that showed that 10 to 20 million additional savings number, right? Even after we paid the vendor. So that is one way of how you can approach this.
Yeah. The
So
thing
Dieter,
go ahead.
So you were already at a very high commitment coverage. And then on top of that, you said like 80 to 90%. On top of that, you are generating a substantial amount of incremental savings because of the automated solution. Yeah. Arnold, you want to share?
Yeah, the thing I would add here is there may be opportunities beyond the dovetail into if you have very high coverage, it may be pointing out that your usage may also need management, and if your usage is very flat because the way you're able to achieve high coverage is because your usage is very flat, maybe your usage needs to become more dynamic. But we'll get to some of that. Maybe we'll get to that. I'll defer that, and let's go to the next question.
Sounds good, yeah.
Because this could be both ways, right? Like you recommend automation, but what are the risk of adopting automation, or you can address it whichever way you want.
If what I would do is I would invert this question. So I would ask the question like, well, what are the risks of not adopting automation?
Yeah.
Right. And the answer is there's opportunity risk or opportunity cost. You're possibly missing on savings. I think Dieter, you already kind of you told the story there, and I think I would think of this as there's an opportunity. I think there's a low cost way or no cost way to evaluate, to see. And so I think the risk is in the other direction. That is, if you're not adopting these solutions, how much money are you leaving on the table? Maybe there isn't. But I would argue that if there's not much money on the table, there's probably different opportunities elsewhere, in which case this might not be the place. But in the suite of FinOps actions, there may be other optimizations that are present.
Yeah, I would like to add actually a couple of things, Chintu. It is important for potential customers to understand that this solution was designed to a drop in and forget about it, right? It was literally designed to not cause any outages. So that is number one, right? So adopting such a solution is very low risk. How much effort is it to adopt such a solution? It is also relatively low effort, right? These vendors have an identity and access management policy. So it's an IAM JSON file that you need to run at least the master payer account. And to get better results, you can run it on all of your accounts to give the vendor either read-only access, or if you decide to adopt the vendor, you can give read-write access, right? And they have two different IAM policies for that. Running that IAM policy is also very low effort, right? At Roku, I have to create a ticket. I have to attach the IAM policy. The ticket has to be assigned to a sprint. Then during a sprint, an engineer will be assigned to the ticket, and then they execute the IAM policy in like 20, 30 minutes, done, right? It's very low effort. When it comes to risk of not adopting such a solution, right? Like Arnold said, you're leaving money on the table. It is, and it's substantial, right? Even if you only spend 10 million on cloud, right? You can expect maybe between 100 and 200,000 on average, right? Each situation may be different. If you already have savings plans, the solution will seemingly work with savings plans or existing RIs, right? There is no interference. So the risk of adopting is low. The risk of not adopting is you're leaving money on the table.
So I have Arnold mentioned the opportunity cost. Do vendors in the space and address the NOps, right? Before you actually do this, you provide like a savings analysis? Is that like a typical thing so you can look at risk versus reward and make a decision?
Arnold?
Yeah, absolutely, right. You on board with us, we'll provide you a free analysis of what the opportunity is, and we'll tell you it's like we've certainly been in situations where it's like there's nothing we can do for you right now, but there's maybe longer term thing. We played the long game together. We might say, hey, there's stuff that we can do together now, and so it's a partnership. And the key thing is it's low effort and low cost, as in no cost.
Go ahead, Arnold.
Go ahead. No.
What I would like to add to this is I mentioned the read-only access, right, and the read-write access. The read-only IAM permissions are to get that savings analysis, right? And these vendors are able to give you a readout of the savings analysis, right, that you can share with leadership, right? So you can put that in, for example, in front of a CFO, right? And that person seeing these results, right? I feel that it makes for a good business case, right? And it may make it easier to make the decision to adopt or not adopt such a vendor, right? It is definitely a tool that a FinOps practitioner can use, and it's available at very low effort and no cost.
Yeah. The range is so wide that it's we can talk in generalities like, oh, you can save X amount. But without your actual usage and actual data, it's very hard to get to a specific number because there may be very little opportunity. It's possible, but but you won't know until you look.
Exactly.
So Dieter, is that like the first step you recommend? Like, don't
absolutely
overthink this, get the savings on, and then make a database decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you're already using a vendor. And you want to go window shopping, right? Do a second savings analysis. Let's see if another vendor can do better.
The other thing I would point out here is if you are doing a really good job, it never hurts to show how to leadership. It's like, look, these vendors we might be able to add something, but maybe it's not a lot, right? And you can basically say, hey, we're doing a good job, independent, not just us saying that we're doing a good, that you don't, it's not just you saying you're doing a good job. The vendor's telling us like, yeah, you're doing a good job. There's nothing we can do for you here, or there's something we can do, but it's this much. It's a little.
Yeah, agreed. It's not just a business case for adopting the vendor. It is also a business case for you keeping your employment.
Yeah. So it's a third-party validation of like, hey, this is what the industry benchmark looks like, and I'm doing versus that, right? Just in-house. Oh, thank you. Yes, so this is around like pricing. How do we pay anything? Do we pay anything if there are no savings? Like this is right, getting to like, okay, I agreed to do the savings analysis. What is the business
speak
model
to us,
like?
right? But I think Dieter can speak in general. I think there are many different pricing models, but we certainly we have a default pricing model. It's marginal. We don't get paid unless we save you money, which means outside of the effort of onboarding, it's going to cost you nothing. That we can. There are always special things that we can negotiate, but the main thing is that's the default. So you can look at it as marginal savings, marginal cost.
Exactly.
So incentives are aligned. Yeah, Dieter, you want to?
The typical is that, let's say if you are spending up to $10 million annually on cloud, right? These products will typically charge 20% of the savings, right? If there is no savings, you're not being charged. That's the bottom line. Over $10 million, you qualify for enterprise pricing, right? And enterprise pricing will be very customized to your situation and will be different from customer to customer.
No, that's great, right? So bottom line is incentives are aligned. Vendor only makes money if they help you save money.
Exactly.
Okay, so one of the final questions we have is like, now everyone is doing Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes is a way to kind of scale up and scale down your resources. Any thoughts on, like, we have large infrastructure teams, they will be questioning, like, you're doing this commitment stuff. Is it gonna help me with my Kubernetes deployment or not? Or how does this all work together?
Yeah. So for these commitment management automated products, it doesn't matter what type of compute you're using, right? You can be using Kubernetes, you can be using AI, as long as they are commitment products. These solutions will cover that compute with convertible reserved instances, right? So it doesn't matter if you have Kubernetes, if you have GPUs, training TPUs, right? As long as the cloud vendor provides commitments for these solutions will apply seemingly to that, and they will not interfere with them as well, right? So it doesn't matter how your Kubernetes workload looks like. If you're using GPUs in this thing, if you have databases in this thing, if you have transactional processing in your Kubernetes, right? Like Roku does, where we connect your video stream with a content delivery network, so that is closest to you, right? That is done by a little container that makes that handshake. And it doesn't matter how you're using Kubernetes, what the compute usage looks like. These products are able to optimize across them. Now, FinOps, I believe, Arnold, has an EKS product as well that provides additional optimizations. Maybe you can speak around that.
Yeah, so we have a product that coordinates and looks at commitment management. So, one thing I didn't mention in the beginning here, right? If you can do spot computing, you should be doing spot computing, just even though I'm in the commitment management space. So that's the ultimate, best commitment is no commitment kind of solution. But sometimes you do that. But if you have a mixed environment, we have automation that will try to switch your will coordinate switching your Kubernetes from spot to on-demand covered by commitments if you have commitments that would otherwise go unused, like a savings plan that we can't manipulate. But yeah, so there's that. So you can do a comprehensive solution. And then to what Dieter already said, your computing should be dynamic, and the feature that we're talking about specifically for this commitment management thing is that as we showed in that slide, we can deal with dynamic and we can deal with hour by hour type changes. And so in a sense, whoever's running the Kubernetes clusters can just do what they want, and the commitment management will just do its best to follow.
Exactly.
I think we are towards the end of, we have 1 minute.
Shinju, are there any live questions, additional questions that might have come in?
No, I think we have covered them all. We are closing in. So like to kind of wrap up this with some final thoughts from what I heard, like, hey, regardless of where you are, whether you're covering 80%, 90%, given how the vendors work, right? You get a free savings analysis. You should be kind of at least get that, whether you want to use it to build a business case for a vendor or for yourself, right? To see how well you're doing against what's possible. And it doesn't, if you decide to buy a solution like this, the incentives are aligned. There's no out-of-pocket cost. It's based on percentage savings. So with that, Dieter, you have some final thoughts, and then followed by before we
we are at the half-hour mark, so I just want to quickly say, if you are one of those people that is doing self-management with savings plans and RIs, right? Do a free savings analysis, right? You won't know how much you are leaving on the table until you do that analysis. and it is very low effort, and it is free. So I like free as a FinOps practitioner.
Who doesn't like free, right? Yeah.
Exactly. No, I'll echo that, and I want to thank Dieter for his time.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for your time for watching.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent
Thank you for having
discussion.
me.
I definitely learned a lot. Thank you.
You guys take care. Bye.